From the day I married her son, my mother-in-law told anyone who would listen that I had trapped him, not in those exact words always, but in the way she told the story of our relationship to relatives, in the way she described our engagement as sudden, in the way she referred to our first year of marriage as an adjustment period for my son. For 5 years, her version of our story followed us to every family gathering. Then came our 5th wedding anniversary dinner. My husband stood up from his chair, held his glass, and told the truth about our relationship so clearly that the entire room went silent. His mother put down her fork and didn't pick it up again for the rest of the evening. My name is Sarah. I'm 34 years old and I've been married to my husband James for 5 years. James and I met at work. We were co-workers for a year before becoming friends. We stayed friends for almost 2 years before dating. Then we dated for 14 months before he proposed. There was nothing sudden about our relationship. Everything happened slowly and naturally. But my mother-in-law Catherine preferred a different version. According to her, James had been perfectly happy until I appeared and changed everything. She never directly called me manipulative. She didn't have to. The implication was always there. At family events she would say things like, "It all happened so fast." Or, "I just hope James really knew what he was getting into." James corrected her many times, but she always returned to the same story. The first time I heard it was 6 weeks after our engagement. I overheard her talking to an aunt at a backyard barbecue. "It happened so quickly," Catherine said. "One minute he was single, the next he was engaged." I stood there quietly. James and I had known each other for almost 4 years at that point. Nothing about it was quick, but I said nothing. Over the years I heard the same comments again and again. Christmas dinners, birthday parties, family vacations, different words, same message. James always defended me, but Catherine never fully stopped. I could see how difficult it was for him. He loved his mother and he loved me. Being caught between us exhausted him, so I made a decision. I wouldn't argue, I wouldn't fight. I would simply continue being myself. Over the next 5 years, James and I built a wonderful life together. We bought a house, supported each other through career changes, handled financial struggles, celebrated successes, faced challenges, and every challenge made us stronger. I also continued treating Catherine with kindness. When she needed rides after knee surgery, I drove her. When she had birthdays, I organized gifts. When she needed help, I showed up, not because she always deserved it, but because she was important to James. Then our 5th anniversary arrived. James wanted a big celebration, family, friends. Everyone together. The house looked beautiful, the food was perfect, everything seemed wonderful until I overheard Catherine once again telling her version of our story. She was speaking to James's aunt. "You know," Catherine said, "marriage took James a long time to adjust to." I felt that familiar disappointment. 5 years later and nothing had changed. Then I noticed James had heard it too. Something about his expression was different. Calm, determined. Dinner continued normally. Then halfway through the meal, James stood up holding his glass. Everyone smiled, expecting a simple anniversary toast. Instead, James looked around the room, then he spoke. "Before I say what I planned tonight, there's something I need to clear up." Room became quiet. James continued. "Sarah and I have been together for almost 8 years. People listened carefully. We were friends for 2 years before dating. Dated for over a year before getting engaged. Nothing about our relationship was sudden." His voice remained calm. Every step was a choice I made willingly. Then he looked directly at Catherine. The room felt frozen. "Mom, I love you." Catherine smiled slightly, then James continued. "But the story you've been telling about Sarah isn't true." Smile disappeared. James wasn't angry. That made his words even more powerful. "Sarah didn't trap me, didn't pressure me, didn't rush me." He paused. "She simply showed up every day, for 8 years. She's supported me through every challenge. She's supported this family. She's treated everyone with kindness, including people who haven't always been fair to her." Nobody moved, nobody spoke. Then James raised his glass. "To my wife, the person I chose, clearly, deliberately, the best decision I've ever made." For a second, complete silence filled the room. Then James's sister started clapping. Others joined. Soon the entire table was applauding. I felt tears forming in my eyes, not because James defended me, but because he finally said publicly what he had always said privately. The truth. I looked toward Catherine. She sat quietly staring at her plate. For the rest of dinner she barely spoke, not rudely, just thoughtfully, almost as if she was replaying every conversation she'd had over the past 5 years. 3 days later my phone rang. The caller ID showed Catherine. I answered nervously. "Hello." There was a long pause, then she said something I never expected. "Owe you an apology." I sat down immediately. Catherine continued. "Been unfair. I told myself I was protecting James. The truth is I was afraid." I listened quietly. She sighed. "I was afraid of losing my place in his life. Instead of admitting that fear, I created a story where you were the problem." The first time she sounded completely honest. "Sorry, Sarah." I smiled. "Thank you for calling." Another pause, then Catherine said softly, "You've always treated me better than I deserved." I laughed gently. James's mother, that was never going to change. A few months later, things weren't magically perfect. We didn't suddenly become best friends, but something important changed. The tension disappeared, the full story disappeared. And for the first time, Catherine started seeing me as part of the family instead of the person who took her son away. Looking back, the most important moment wasn't the apology. It wasn't the phone call. It was watching James stand up in a room full of people and tell the truth. Because sometimes one honest sentence can undo years of misunderstanding. And sometimes the strongest thing a husband can do isn't argue. It's simply tell the truth out loud when everyone is listening.